Welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. The future belongs to builders. Together, we explore topics of interest to legal innovators. Let's begin. Here's your host, Olga Mack.
Well, hello. It's so good to see you all. I have a very special guest, and we will be exploring a topic that I wanted to talk for a long time. A few friends in the industry have transitioned from being lawyers, active lawyers, to maybe legal ops, maybe to various other things. And I've seen a few friends who have become product leaders. And today I have a very special guest who've transitioned in exactly that way. And I think has many amazing lessons to share with you. And it's a great opportunity for you to ask questions and learn from his journey. So without further ado, Carl, welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. I'm so excited to have this conversation. Please introduce yourself for folks who haven't met you yet.
Yeah, thanks, Olga. Super excited to be here on the show. Yes, I'm Carl Davidson. I'm currently the co-founder of an AI legal tech startup called Candle AI. And as Olga mentioned, I used to be an attorney several years ago, and I transitioned completely into tech and product management. And I'm super excited to kind of share that story and that journey with the audience here.
Yeah, I've learned that journey recently, and what a fascinating journey it is. So, for us to have sort of a baseline that we can discuss and reference, what was the scenic route from here to there? Maybe what happened after you graduated from law school, and what was the journey like? What were the stops?
Yeah, I actually my first law firm job was this corporate law firm in Chicago. I soon actually switched into immigration law. My mom is actually an immigrant, and that kind of interested me. And so I started practicing in business immigration for a few years. Then I got this position, this opportunity at this legal tech company called INS Zoom, which made immigration software for immigration attorneys. And I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. So I just kind of met the CEO. He talked to me about it. And next thing you know, I was kind of doing all sorts of things at this legal tech company. I was doing a little bit of customer success. I was doing a little bit of product management. And at the time, I didn't even know what these things were. This is like, 10 years ago or so. And I just started to realize that this is much more kind of creative outlet for me. And I enjoyed it more. And I was just like, I was like, this is it. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna go back to law. This is tech and product is something that just completely took over my life. And I've been in it for the last, 10 years. So.
I love that. Interesting. Someone who's gone through immigration, personal experiences could sort of fuel solving the problem or turn you away from ever dealing with that again. So, in your transition from law firm to the technology role, it sounds like there is a sort of personal story related to immigration and the problems associated with it. Is that kind of what fueled the change, or was there more?
I think I was just kind of interested in doing more with my law degree. I think a lot of lawyers have the similar kind of itch that they feel that, like, what else can I do with my law degree? And I heard about this software because my firm and other firms I knew were using it, which is kind of probably a lesson for other lawyers who want to transition into technology. Is something I could maybe impart, is that if you do want to transition into tech, look at the tools you're currently using. Like, what are the tools you as a lawyer are currently using, and try to learn about those, because you're the user. Like, those companies try to learn about you. They spend so much time finding out what are your pain points, what are your needs, and who is it better to tell that except you, right? You're actually using their tool. And so I knew about this company. They were in my space, in the legal tech space, immigration specifically, and I felt comfortable enough to go kind of take that leap because I was familiar with their system. And it was just kind of like one of those things, like, let's see what this works. And it just worked out. Yep.
I love it. Be a power user and solve your problems. But curious, How did the meeting with the CEO happen? Were you actively seeking out? Did you reach out? What was the series of events that led to a conversation and a job and eventually to, I guess,
Mhm.
life calling?
Yeah, I think there was a both push and pull here. So I was kind of seeking something outside of law, like what else can I do with a law degree, like I was saying. But I think the CEO was also seeking a lawyer in the field that was practicing that can do more stuff for the legal tech company. As a lawyer, we could bring a lot of things to a tech company. We're very good at problem solving, at client management, right? At structured thinking, being comfortable with ambiguity. All this stuff is very helpful to bring in a tech company as well, because all those things are needed if you want to work in tech or if you want to work in product. And I think there was a push and pull there. Like he definitely saw a need in bringing in a current lawyer into the company to kind of give advice in terms of the customer and the product. But I also had a pull from my end of seeing what else is out there for me to do.
Is there more to life than law? The
Yep.
big question. What
Yep.
is life and is there more? So good. You mentioned that your journey involved multiple roles, some customer success, some sales, some products, some
Mhm.
juggling, other things. How did you sort of zero in? Because you could have taken it many ways, right? From sales to
Mhm.
customer success to marketing to product leadership. Those are
Mhm.
different functions. And you see lawyers, especially in legal tech companies, step in. I mean, they're really good at writing even marketing materials because they're subject matter experts and they're really good at selling.
Mhm.
Why? Because they basically talk to peers and they're really good at customer success for all of those reasons you just discussed. But then there's product, leadership. And I want to zero in on that, which is distinct field where, relatively new compared to maybe all of these other functions. And I personally have brought a lot of folks who are basically legal specialists and have transitioned to this. And I prefer to bring a legal specialist and train them on a best product sort of practices as opposed to training a product specialist on legal practices because that's, I think, mission impossible. But how did you, as a practitioner, somebody who understands law, somebody who practiced, somebody who had a personal story around immigration. How did you, among all these choices and this big buffet of what you can do at a company and how you can be helpful, how did you zero in on this product leadership?
Yeah, great question. And at the time when I was at this tech company, the users, the customers of this tech company were like me. They were immigration attorneys, immigration law firms. And so the engineering team, we didn't really have a product person or a product team there at the time. The CEO was doing a lot of the product decisions. So it kind of fell on me in terms of what to kind of build, right? So the engineering team would naturally walk over to my cubicle and get my advice or get my input into something that they're building because it's a feature that they are building for a person like me. Exactly a person like me, right? So I would give my input and my feedbacks like, I don't know, that's great, this is really good, maybe move that here. And and then I learned that some of those decisions that I made and advice that I gave the engineering team ended up into the product. And I found out that some of my friends who were still practicing in the industry who had this tool were using those features that I kind of suggested. And at that point, I felt like I don't know, like a movie star in a way. Like it just felt
A
like wow to me.
creator, a
Yeah,
creator. It's
yeah,
creating is the most powerful thing you can do, whether it's a
right.
work of art or a piece of software. You felt like as a creator.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Yeah, I felt like it was wild. It was wild. And at that point, like law, going back to law couldn't really compete because it's something exactly what you said, Olga. I helped create something, and it's not only that, but it's being used by people that I know, and that just blew my mind. And that's when I kind of had some further discussions with the company and the CEO, and they were like, "Yeah, this thing is it's called product management, and you could be a product manager." And at the time, I didn't know what that was. I didn't even know if that was a real position. Like, what is that? Can I do something with this title called product manager? Because, like it was kind of new to me at the time. And from then on, I've just been building, trying to build products in tech companies since then.
Yeah, is that a real role? I remember an interview with an early stage startup, and they were not into titles. And I said, "Well, what are you gonna call me?" And the CEO said, "I don't know, whatever you prefer, somewhere in between, a clerk and a queen bee." And that was, and so every time there's a title of something like product leader or product manager, you're like, "Oh, is this a real thing? Like, can I have a second job after this? Is this marketable?" Yeah, I've been in the places where I thought about it. Thank you for sharing that very powerful experience of taking some thoughts and then, as they take shape, seeing them releasing them into the wild and seeing people use it and then seeing industries change. I think that's the power of the creator. You can take something that doesn't exist and is not cannot be packaged and change the course of history. I think that's why creation is the most powerful thing in the world. I'm curious, as you sort of figured out that product leadership, product and building is a thing and a discipline and increasingly intentionally taught, whether it's in business school or technology or separate courses, have you actually taken steps to educate yourself or kind of put a structure in it or get, I don't know, so somewhere between certificates and degrees, or how did you think about this discipline? Are you still sort of at an informal place, or did you sort of decide that a more formal route makes sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, when I was transitioning, like I said, this was several years ago, and there wasn't really, it wasn't something that you could kind of go to school with or school for at the time, like a major in product management. What I personally did when I was just starting in product and building products was I was in the Bay Area. This company was in the Bay Area. So I couldn't, number one, I couldn't have asked for a better place to learn about product management than in Silicon Valley in San Francisco at the time. And I was up there for 3 years. And what I did was I basically went to every meetup that I could go to that was product related or product and tech related, because I didn't have any formal training. I didn't have any certificates. And here I was being called a product manager, and I had no, like I said, there was no prior training there, but I had to learn one way or another. And so what I did was I basically just went out and I just looked for meetup events, like I said, any type of, you know, social gathering or whatever on Facebook or Reddit that I could go to and meet other product managers and go to, like, in a social setting and just learn. And that's what I did. That's basically, how I did it. You could call it informal training if you want, but at the end of the day, you got to learn it one way or another. And I think I just had a great, I was lucky that I was at that location at that time.
Yeah, no, for sure. I see product, there is no typical product leader, product manager, because, they come from sometimes subject matter expertise and disciplines, and, lawyers and doctors are different species. And so what that product leadership will look like is different. And, you see folks who are, trained kind of specifically on best practices, that you see people who kind of learn by doing or under sort of essentially being supervised apprenticeship type of model. It is still a discipline that is relatively recent and still taking shape. So I was curious, kind of, and on my team I've done both. Some of the members of my team didn't really care about certificate and successfully made leaps into other companies outside of legal tech after this, and others actually wanted it, and I invested into my people to actually train them the best practices that product leaders do, and they found it incredibly valuable. And I thought it was the best investment I made into my team.
Yeah. Uh,
It's
yeah.
just helpful. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think it is super important to have a structured training in some capacity. That's actually one of the reasons why I left that first initial, software immigration software company, and I sought like a product manager role at Intuit, which is one of the biggest, tech companies out there. Intuit owns TurboTax, MailChimp, QuickBooks, it's a pretty
The
gigantic
cool
company.
things you heard of. How about
Yeah,
that?
right. And I could say that really was the moment where I really was, the structure of product management was instilled in me. It was at Intuit, and they're really known for doing a lot of UX, customer feedback. I was on their TurboTax team, and TurboTax is great because they turned a very stressful situation, filing taxes, into almost a very delightful situation in going through the TurboTax flow. And they were able to do that based on UX design and a lot of customer research and a lot of customer feedback to see how can we make filing taxes a lot like not terrible. And a lot of that is product management. Like at the basic of that is product management, listening to customers, listening to their needs, and putting out a UX design that answers those needs and features, not the other way around, right? Not building something and then finding a solution or a pain point for it. So I think that was another lucky step that I had. Was the very next position I had was at a company like Intuit that was able to invest in me and put in that really regimental type of, this is how you become a product manager. This is what it's like. This is what you got to do, right? So
Yeah, Intuit has some, PLG type of motion where they very actively interview and talk to customers and solve
Mhm.
and beta test. So definitely a great structured place that actually develops those best practices to
Mhm.
make sure that you build stuff that people like. I wouldn't go as far as saying that it's the most delightful thing I would do when I do my taxes. In fact, it's so not delightful that I delegated to, my spouse. but
Yeah.
but it is a difference between my spouse being able to do it and I would have to hire an accountant. So definitely that I would capture that as a big difference. Taking something that is completely unapproachable to making it possible as opposed to mission impossible. And that's definitely product leadership. Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about kind of, what I think is a good continuation of a product leadership and starting a company. And you see a lot of product leaders, especially when they care about a problem, especially when they understand it so deeply, where they stand in the shoe of essentially subject matter expert with and understanding sort of product leadership that makes them really good co-founders. So I'm just curious, tell us more about your current company and how did you see your transition from being a product leader working for somebody else, solving a problem that you understand, to actually kind of taking it further and building it and being one of the folks who actually found it, and how do you see that transition in your career?
Yeah, I think first off, without AI and generative AI coming about recently, like in the last, year and a half, 2 years, a lot of this wouldn't be possible. A lot of this wouldn't been able for me and the co-founder to do like traditionally, like build a traditional SaaS company. With Gen AI coming about, it has just completely opened all sorts of avenues for founders and co-founders, people who have ideas. I think that's really important because before 2 years ago, I couldn't go on some tool and write up a code and have a prototype in 30 minutes. So AI has completely just flipped everything upside down. It's given me, somebody like me who's not the most technical person, who came from law, the confidence, but also the ability to be able to be like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to quit my job and start a company because of this technology that is giving me this availability, this ability to do things. Like I said, spin up a prototype in 20 minutes, do marketing materials in 5 minutes, set up a website in 5 minutes, reach out cold, warm intros and using AI on LinkedIn in like 20 minutes. It's crazy. So I think first off, without this Gen AI kind of wave that has come about in the last couple of years, I wouldn't have been able to kind of transition and just quit my job and go all in. Okay. I think that's number one. So it's kind of the timing of the situation too. But number two, I think as a former lawyer, I think my co-founder and I, My co-founder is a technical. We just found this pain point by talking to lawyers, and you have to follow the pain, right? You can't like seek out a solution. You have to really follow and understand a pain point deeply. And every lawyer that we spoke to when we were validating this pain point said, I have a problem with emails. Emails suck. I hate emails. Emails take half the time of my day. I can't work. And when it happens one or two or three, or that's one thing, but it happens every time. And there's really no clear solution in the market right now, specifically for the legal industry. It gave us the validation and the confidence to spin up, a lightweight prototype and start attacking this problem.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think you and I both experienced this change in technology and being in the point of our lives where we can afford to take risk, excited to do it, see the path, and whatever other things are not in the way of going forward. And I absolutely agree with you. This ability to spin things quickly, test them, get instant feedback is super critical and exciting. I mean, it's like being in a candy store, and it actually sometimes could be an overwhelming experience as somebody who probably says yes to more things than I should. And then your second point about sort of following the pain, and I do want to kind of double click. Email has been around, not from the beginning of times, but maybe for the last few decades, has definitely improved things, has definitely added some pain points as well. And how do you go from this idea of discovering pain points, which is question number one, and I guess question two, how do you then take all that stuff and make it into a product that actually gives a delightful solution?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just to kind of give more background, my co-founder and I actually had a prior startup before this startup. We had a prior startup. It was another name. It was called Nava AI. And that was actually a startup that automated immigration visas, interestingly enough. Right. And we did this. We would cut down the time it takes to actually file an application to the government, and we were networking with different lawyers to do the signing and reviewing piece of it. Now, when we were talking to the lawyers in our network, almost every conversation we had with them inevitably turned into how busy they are or how like swamped they are. And inevitably it turned to, like emails. Like I get so many emails from you guys, or I get so many emails from clients. I can't function. I can't do my legal work. And we just kept tapping into that pain. Okay. Why is that? Why aren't clients using your case management system and going in there and sending you messages there? Like everybody, like Clio has in-app messaging. Why aren't they using that? It's like, clients don't want to go there. They at the end of the day, they still want me to send emails. Oh, okay. So there is something out there, but they're not using it because it's uncomfortable for them. Okay. So there really isn't anything out there that's properly solving this issue. So I think it was just a matter of asking the 5 whys. It's one of the things that you do in product. Like, okay, why? Okay, why? It's like a kid. It's like my daughter. It's like, well, okay, why? And then you get down to the nugget of it. And it's like, oh, okay. So that's really a problem. Right? That's really why they're doing it. And so I think that's one of the ways we would validate this situation is kind of we were treating the lawyers in our network as potential users, number one, of the product. And number two, in terms of building a prototype or an MVP, it's essentially that, right? Like what is the most basic first draft, like first prototype that we could put out there that is valuable to somebody and that's usable? It doesn't have to be perfect. It won't be perfect, but something that can be used, that they could see the value immediately. And that's what we did. We spun up a prototype over a weekend and we submitted it to a legal conference. They were having like an event, an innovator event late last year, and we were selected to present. And it was like a prototype. that we had. It looks totally different than our current product, but it was just something that we were able to spin up quickly that answered the immediate pain point that users have.
This is great. I want to ask you a question about adoption because it's related to discovery of pain points and building useful stuff. But if you talk in the industry, especially if you're building products for lawyers, the issue of adoption will come up. Sometimes people say we're difficult. I just tell people that we have standards. It's the same thing, really. Just one is more diplomatic than another. But just curious, as a product leader, dealing with folks who are highly educated, ambitious, and have standards, somewhere medium to high, sometimes very high. How do you make sure that what you build is actually adopted and used?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think there's a couple guiding lights that I try to use. Is that number one, the magic moment, the magic moment, the value needs to be seen almost immediately when somebody's trying a new product. You can't expect them to adopt something if they can't see the value within like the first few seconds. It has to be pretty immediate for them to see to accept this product in their life. Like they have to see the magic moment within the first few seconds of it, right? I really believe that. But number two, one of the philosophies I have, especially in the legal industry, is that tools and AI tools should, at least my opinion, it should be embedded into their current work, into a legal professional's current workflow. And what I mean by that is that there's so many tools out there in the legal industry that the last thing a lawyer wants right now is another thing they need to put in a password and username for, go in and check something and have a tab open. And it's like they don't want another thing like that, right? Like ideally, to make adoption be more seamless, is a tool should really live in the current workflow, so it doesn't require them to log in, password, and do that and do another thing, right? I think that's the second point. And the third point for adoption is that the tech company and the law firm, they need to understand the expectations and the goal, right? So if you're working with a law firm, if we work with a law firm, we are very interested to know what is the ROI that law firm wants to have at the end of the day. Is it more time outside of emails, or less time working in emails? Is it what is it? What is the goal? And then we will work with that law firm to try to achieve that goal, right? So we both have skin in the game trying to reach a goal. So those are the three things about adoption that I would say.
I love that. You mentioned this thing called magical moment.
Mm-hmm.
Let's double click on that. What does it, I guess, mean to you? How do you get some? How do you improve your odds of getting it more often?
Yeah, I think, well, maybe if I could use the example of Candle. So, with Candle AI, we integrate with a law firm's case management system and other systems, and also like their email platform. So when they click on a client email, instead of the lawyer or legal professional going to their case management system to find out what is going on with this client, because we're integrated with the case management system, we actually show what's going on with the client right on the inbox page itself, like right on Outlook or Gmail or whatever they're using, right on the right panel. So that's the magic moment for Candle AI. It happens when they click on a client email. They see the client information immediately right in their inbox. So there's no need to kind of log in, go to a password, put in your password, go to another, maybe click here, and then see it. It actually happens right when they click on a client email and they see it. So it happens right away. And plus, and this is another thing about adoption, is that it's already embedded into their flow. Like they don't need to, like I said, go somewhere else. They just use the same email that they have. They open up Outlook, they open up Gmail like they do every day, and it's already there as an extension on Gmail or as an add-in in Outlook. So there's really nothing for them to kind of like log into again.
Great. We're coming to the end. I have a few more questions. I want to talk a little bit about, I want you to pull out a crystal ball and pretend you can see the future of legal tech and future of law. From your point of view, because you've now had a few adventures as a product leader, now as a founder, solving issues, creating magical moments. I'm just curious, from your point of view, as you kind of look at it, what are legal, what are the opportunities to be solved that are rewarding? And by rewarding, I mean maybe two things. There were a couple of things. One is will change the industry and the way we law, but also there are opportunities for entrepreneurs that have financial benefits and not just bragging rights. So I'm curious, kind of, what are the problems we're solving?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll give one specific one and one kind of general one. I think a specific one is data and making sure the data is the data in a law firm or a system is can be structured in some way. So I think that when you say opportunity, I see that as an opportunity. Right now, there's a lot of unstructured data in law and in law firms. And what I mean by that is that, you have a client information in an email, and then you have information in a document that's an attachment to an email. Then you have something in your SharePoint, and then you have another thing about that client in somewhere else, right? It's all over the place and it's unstructured. I think there's an opportunity to structure unstructured data, if that makes sense, and kind of put it in one place, because I think these AI tools, and when we talk about agentic AI, it's going to be dependent on the data at the end of the day. So I think there's an opportunity there. That's a specific point. I think the general point is there's legal tech right now is wild. There's so many things going on, and there's a lot of like big acquisitions happening. Harvey AI just had recently a huge raise. Clio just acquired VLEX for like $1 billion. And there's a lot of consolidation going on. What I fear, or maybe not fear is the right word, but maybe my thought though is that with all these consolidations, and especially these like big AI tech companies like Harvey, I don't want the small and mid-sized firms and solo practitioners to get left behind in AI, because especially with like Harvey and like these other ones that have their own LLMs, they're not cheap, right? They sell to a lot of these AmLaw 100 firms. And I just don't want the solo practitioners and the small firms, which is the vast majority of lawyers, by the way, in this country and in this world, to be left behind. And I'm kind of sensing that might be happening already. Like, there's so many, especially if they consolidate so much. I want the small and solo firms to still have access to really good AI tools at the end of the day.
Interesting. You said a couple of things. One, the structured data. I'm very familiar because that's what we're solving in contracts, actually. That's exactly what we do.
Mhm.
And I think it's important. It's a very challenging problem. It's a very geeky problem to solve. It's
Mhm.
geeky on the legal side. It's geeky on the technology side. It's super geeky on the data side. So it's geeky all around. So it's a good problem to solve. I agree with that. And there, outside of contracts, there are many other opportunities, from emails to briefs to whatever other paper or work product you have. I find it interesting that there has been consolidation as long as I've been around before in legal industry. If anything, I've seen quite a lot of innovation, because consolidation means that there is a way for a startup not to remain a startup forever, but actually have a meaningful exit. And curious to see Clio's acquisition, almost inspired by the whole thing. And in my mind, Clio is very actively solving this problem for small, medium law firms, and so actually very inspired by this exit. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think Clio has done a good job in terms of providing access to their technology to small and mid-sized firms, right? I do like their acquisition of VLEX. as an AI, as a small AI company in the space, we actually, we root for these things. Like we want these big companies to succeed, like Clio and like Harvey, because the more that they succeed and the more acquisitions they make and the more raises they do, I think it's just lifting the whole industry up. And yeah, it does provide us with more visibility, like the smaller AI legal tech companies, more visibility and more word of mouth. So I think that's good. I just want to make sure that, everybody, like every segment of the legal industry benefits from this wave of AI technology more, a little bit more equally than hopefully it might not, and
Yeah, no, I see a concern. I was just curious. I think Cleo specifically has done a good job also including other folks, smaller companies on the journey of innovation and making products available through their APIs. We recently on my research project had an opportunity to dive in, and honestly, they have been probably one of the most supportive partners that we've explored was the community and technology and the APIs available. I was honestly blown away actually because I don't really see that kind of the the kind of support for a community generally for builders among big players. And I think what Jack and Clea has done is just remarkable and commendable. I really do think that other people should follow. I to me that's an act of leadership really, and I'm really impressed by that.
yeah, no, I agree. I think their API, they are very open in terms of their API. It's amazing how seamless it is for a company like Candle and others to integrate with Clio. And I totally agree. Like they provide the access to all types of firms. A solo practitioner can use them. And if, by integrating with Candle and other AI companies, then you have a solo practitioner, getting access to this, like, very like innovative, nimble AI companies that can be integrated with Clio. So I agree on that front completely.
Friend, we've come to the end. We've covered a lot of ground and we spent more time than was allocated to us. I'm really grateful for all the insights and practical wisdom that you've shared and your journey and your sort of future predictions. Maybe as a goodbye, you can give folks one things who are curious about legal tech, future of law, product leadership, what it means to transition on the product side or become an interpreter, whatever you pick. But what is one takeaway they should take from this 40-minute conversation or so?
Yeah, I think I've spoken to a lot of lawyers as well, who are looking to transition into technology specifically, and they always say like, what was one advice you give me? I think one advice I would give them is, like I said earlier, I just want to double down on it, is that, look at the tools that you're already using, like your case management tool, your billing tool, and if you really want to make that jump, do research on that and then see if there are, positions or roles available in those tech companies, because at the end of the day, their product team and their research team are looking at you, like, for insights. They're looking at people like you because you are the user of their product. So what better person can step in to a tech company and, you know, bestow and provide feedback on what your needs are than you as a user yourself. So I think that would be one advice. That's how I did it. I think that's how other people have been doing it as well. That's definitely one advice I would give to lawyers who are looking to transition into tech today.
Thank you, Carl. I love the power of the power user. They change the course of history almost as much or just in a different way as the creators themselves. So true. Thank you so much, friend, for being here. I really appreciate this
Thank you.
conversation. This was amazing, and thank you for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
Um, and thank you, everyone, for joining. It's hopefully you had some great takeaways. I would be curious if you have any other recommendations or thoughts or observations. And I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
you for stopping by. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Notes to My Legal Self. The future belongs to builders. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They're an act of courage. Keep in mind, the future of law is all lit up. Let's roll up our sleeves, innovate, build, and change the world of law together. See you soon.